You spent the morning getting ready for the work event. The shoes you wore have a logo on the side. The bag has a logo on the strap. The watch has a logo on the face. The sunglasses have a logo on the temple. You feel sharp. You feel like you're showing up the right way. You scroll past your reflection in the elevator and feel something that resembles confidence. Then you walk into the room and notice the woman in the corner. No logos. Plain navy sweater that fits her perfectly. Quiet leather shoes that look like they've been worn for 10 years. A watch face you don't recognize. She's the one running the company. You learn this 20 minutes later. She has more in her brokerage account than you'll earn in the next 12 years combined. And she's looking at you the way you used to look at thrift store clothes in college. Polite, slightly amused, quietly noting something you can't quite see. The thing she's noting is the gap between what you think looks rich and what actually is rich. They're not the same thing. They've never been the same thing. The whole reason you can't see the gap is the reason it stays open. What looks rich to most Americans screams broke to people who have actually built wealth. This isn't a moral judgment. It's a recognition pattern. People who have been around real money for a long time can spot manufactured wealth from a distance. The signals are predictable, the signals are loud, and they almost always indicate the opposite of what the person displaying them intends. Today I'm going to walk you through what wealthy people are actually seeing when they look at the displays of wealth that surround them, why those displays are so consistent, what real wealth signals look like instead, and how to stop unconsciously broadcasting financial fragility while thinking you're broadcasting success. Quick disclaimer before we start. None of this is financial advice. This is education about a pattern. Use it as a map, not a prescription. Let's get into it. The first thing wealthy people see, and the most common, is the leased luxury car, the base model BMW, the entry-level Mercedes, the bottom trim Audi, the cheapest Porsche, the car someone bought specifically because of the badge on the hood, not because of what the car can do. This is the loudest possible signal of manufactured wealth, and almost everyone who drives one believes they're signaling the opposite. Here's what wealthy people understand that the lessor doesn't. The base model luxury car costs roughly the same as a fully loaded Honda Accord or Toyota Camry. The Honda has better features, more comfortable seating, superior reliability scores from every consumer research organization, and dramatically lower maintenance costs across the ownership window. The badge on the BMW is the entire reason the lessor chose the BMW over the Honda. Wealthy people already know this calculation, and they recognize anyone driving a base model luxury vehicle as someone who paid a premium specifically for visual signaling. The badge stops working as a signal once the wealthy observer recognizes that the car was selected for the badge. The math beneath this is unforgiving. According to Experience Q for 2025 State of the Automotive Finance Market Report, the average new vehicle monthly payment in the United States hit $767. Over 20% of new car buyers now commit to monthly payments exceeding $1,000. Total U.S. auto loan debt has crossed $1.66 trillion. The cars in the parking lots of the country are not paid for. They are leveraged. They are payments stretched across 68, 72, even 84 months. The person driving the leased X5 isn't sitting on wealth. They're sitting on a long-term obligation that consumes a significant percentage of their take-home pay every single month. Compare this to what wealthy people actually drive. The Ramsey Solutions National Study of Millionaires, which surveyed over 10,000 millionaires, found that the top 3 vehicle brands driven by millionaires are Toyota, Honda, and Ford. Not in the top 10, the top 3. The median price millionaires pay for their vehicles is $31,367, according to research originally documented by Thomas Stanley in The Millionaire Next Door and corroborated by every subsequent study of millionaire spending patterns. An Experian automotive analysis found that 61% of people earning over $250,000 drive Hondas, Toyotas, or Fords. Mercedes doesn't crack the top 10 brands driven by millionaires. BMW barely registers. The actually wealthy don't drive luxury cars at the same rate the visibly wealthy do. They drive the unglamorous, reliable cars and let the visible wealthy compete with each other for parking lot status. When a wealthy person sees a base model luxury vehicle in a coworker's parking spot, they're not impressed. They're running the math in the background. They know the monthly payment. They know the depreciation curve. They know that within 36 months, that car will be worth substantially less than what's owed on it. They recognize the lease as a wealth extraction event, masquerading as a wealth display. The badge isn't producing the effect the lessor wanted. It's producing the opposite. Move to clothing. This is the second loudest manufactured wealth signal, and it operates by an even more transparent mechanism, the visible logo. The Gucci belt with the GG buckle. The Louis Vuitton bag with the LV pattern, the Versace shirt with the Medusa head, the Dior anything. The visible brand identifier exists for one reason and one reason only, to communicate the price of the item to other people. The garment itself doesn't need a logo to function. The function of the logo is broadcast. Wealthy people understand the broadcast and what it means. There's a phenomenon researchers in luxury consumer behavior have documented for years. Middle-class consumers account for more than half of all global luxury brand sales, according to research published in the Wall Street Journal. That sentence is worth reading twice. The people buying the loudest luxury goods are not the wealthiest people. They are the middle-class consumers using those goods to signal upward mobility they haven't achieved. The actually wealthy are buying differently. And they're buying so differently that the visible logo has become a reliable indicator of the wearer's actual financial bracket. Visible logo equals broadcasting need. Quiet luxury equals having arrived. The pattern reverses what most people assume. This is where the term quiet luxury comes from, and it's why it's been the dominant fashion trend among the wealthy for the last several years. Glamour magazine, the Wall Street Journal, and dozens of fashion publications have documented this shift. After the show Succession ended, searches for Loro Piana spiked globally. The appeal wasn't the logo. There is no logo. The garments are designed specifically to be unrecognizable to anyone who doesn't already know what they are. A $4,000 Loro Piana cashmere sweater looks like a plain sweater to almost everyone. The people who recognize it are the small subset of viewers who are already inside the wealth bracket that buys it. That's the entire point. Wealth signaling at the highest levels is intentionally illegible to outsiders. The Brunello Cucinelli phenomenon is the same dynamic. The Hermes Birkin without obvious branding is the same dynamic. The unbranded vintage Patek Philippe watch is the same dynamic. Wealthy people don't want their belongings to be recognized by people who can't afford them. The recognition itself is the dilution of the signal. They want their belongings to be recognized only by other wealthy people, which creates a private signaling system that the visible luxury crowd cannot participate in. So when a wealthy person sees a Gucci belt with the giant double G buckle on a colleague, they're not seeing wealth. They're seeing someone trying to communicate wealth to people who don't have it. That's a categorically different signal. The wealthy person already knows that nobody at their actual income level wears that belt. The belt is broadcasting upward aspiration, not downward security. Aspiration is the signal of someone climbing. Security is the signal of someone arrived. Climbing and arrived are not the same. Move to housing. The third loudest manufactured wealth signal. The oversized house in the suburb that just got built. The 5-bedroom new construction with the 2-story foyer and the 4-car garage and the kitchen that looks like a magazine spread. The neighborhood where every house was built in the last 15 years and every garage holds a leased SUV. Wealthy people see this and recognize it as overextension. The math reveals itself immediately. According to the Atlanta Fed's Housing Ownership Affordability Monitor, through early 2026, owning a median-priced home in America now consumes roughly 48% of the median household's income. People stretching to buy the bigger, newer house are crossing that line, sometimes substantially. Their housing payment includes the mortgage, property taxes, homeowners insurance, HOA fees in many subdivisions, and the implicit cost of maintaining a larger structure. The square footage they're paying for produces additional costs. Larger heating bills, larger cooling bills, more furniture to fill the rooms, more yard to maintain, more everything. What wealthy people often live in instead surprises observers who haven't paid attention. Warren Buffett famously still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He could have bought every house on his street. He chose not to. Mark Zuckerberg, until recently, lived in a relatively modest Palo Alto home for years after he could have bought anything. The Ramsey study of millionaires found that 94% of millionaires live in middle-class neighborhoods or modest neighborhoods, even after crossing the $1 million threshold. The wealthy person's house is often unremarkable from the outside. Their wealth shows up in their accounts, not their addresses. The reason for this is structural. The wealthy understand that housing decisions made in your 30s and 40s shape your financial trajectory in your 50s and 60s more than almost any other variable. The difference between a $350,000 house and a $600,000 house in terms of monthly carrying costs runs roughly $1,500 to $2,000 per month. $2,000 a month invested at 8% for 25 years compounds to approximately $1,800,000. That's the actual price of the upgraded kitchen and the extra bedroom you'd stop noticing within 18 months. Wealthy people have run this math and made their housing choice with the math in mind. The visibly wealthy person in the oversized new build did the opposite. They optimized for visible space and forfeited the compound future. When a wealthy person sees an oversized house, they don't see success, they see house poor. They see someone whose lifestyle is fragile because too much of their cash flow is committed to maintaining a structure. They see someone one job loss away from foreclosure. The data backs this perception. According to Goldman Sachs research, 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 annually report living paycheck to paycheck. 40% of those earning over $500,000 say the same. These are people with substantial incomes who appear wealthy from the outside and are functionally fragile in reality. The oversized house is one of the primary mechanisms keeping them in that fragility. Let me pause for a moment because the underlying pattern across these first three categories is becoming visible. Manufactured wealth signals are loud. Real wealth signals are quiet. Manufactured wealth signals require ongoing payments to sustain. Real wealth signals are paid for, often years ago, and quietly hold value. Manufactured wealth signals broadcast to strangers. Real wealth signals are deliberately illegible to strangers. The directional reversal is consistent across virtually every visible category. Once you can see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Every category we discuss going forward will follow the same logic. Move to handbags. Specifically, the visible logo designer handbag, the Louis Vuitton Neverfull, the Gucci Marmont, the Coach signature monogram bag, the MK metallic logo tote. These are the bags that broadcast the brand from across a room. They're designed to. The branding is the product. Here's what wealthy people see when they look at these bags. According to a Wall Street Journal analysis of luxury consumer behavior, the typical wealthy individual buying handbags is buying unbranded leather goods, vintage Hermes pieces, or specifically the no-logo versions of major luxury houses. The branded canvas Louis Vuitton bags, while expensive at $1,200 to $3,500, are recognized within the actual wealth bracket as middle-class signaling devices. The wealthy bracket has moved up to bags that cost 5 to 20 times more and have no visible branding whatsoever. Hermes Birkins start around $12,000 and have no logo. Bottega Veneta Intrecciato weave bags have no logo. The Loro Piana Extra Pocket bag has no logo. The directional shift is unmistakable. The math here mirrors the cars. The branded canvas bag is purchased on a credit card, often financed across months, sometimes paid off with multiple paychecks. The Hermes Birkin is purchased outright, often with cash, by a buyer for whom the sticker price represents an unremarkable fraction of monthly income. The wealthy buyer isn't financing the bag, they're acquiring it. The visibly wealthy buyer is financing a signal of wealth they don't structurally possess. Both bags are bags. Only one is a wealth indicator. The other is a wealth aspiration indicator. The two get confused constantly because the ones doing the aspiring don't realize the ones doing the arriving have already moved on. Move to watches. This is the category where the signaling reversal is most extreme and most visible to people inside the wealth bracket. The visible signaling watches in the lower luxury tier are well known: Rolex Submariner, Rolex Datejust, Omega Seamaster. The watches you see on Instagram, the watches that get tagged in posts, the watches with names regular people recognize. What wealthy people are wearing instead is almost invisible to the public. Patek Philippe Calatrava, Audemars Piguet Royal Oak in unusual references, Vintage Vacheron Constantin, Lang & Son, F.P. Journe. Independent watchmakers most people have never heard of, with price tags that run from $40,000 to several $100,000 per watch. The wealthy are wearing these watches in plain sight, and the people who would be most impressed by the cost of those watches don't know what they're looking at. That's the entire design. A wealthy person wearing a $100,000 watch on the train looks to most observers like someone wearing a regular watch. The watch doesn't broadcast. It signals only to the very small subset of viewers who know the brand and the reference. This is intentional and structural. Privacy of wealth is itself a value the wealthy preserve. They don't want random observers calculating their net worth based on their wrist. They want recognition only from people who already know. When a wealthy person sees a Rolex Submariner on someone, they don't see a wealthy person. They see someone who saved up or financed a recognizable luxury watch. The watch isn't a signal of being wealthy. It's a signal of having allocated significant disposable income toward a luxury watch purchase. Those are different. Plenty of middle-class people own Submariners. Almost no wealthy people consider the Submariner an actual wealth indicator. It's a starter luxury watch in their world, not a flex. Move to social media. The fourth loudest category, and arguably the most pervasive in 2026. The Instagram feed, the TikTok content, the posts featuring the rented Lamborghini, the staged private jet photo, the curated dinner table at the trendy restaurant, the elaborate vacation photos with the hashtag blessed, the whole choreographed performance of prosperity that has become the default mode of personal expression for an entire generation. Wealthy people see this and recognize the structural problem immediately. Real wealth doesn't perform online. Real wealth is generally invisible because the wealthy understand that visibility creates risk. According to Javelin Research, identity theft rates among high net worth individuals run 43% higher than the general population. Wealthy individuals get specifically targeted by what security professionals call whaling attacks, which are sophisticated phishing and impersonation schemes built on data harvested from social media profiles. The more visible your wealth, the larger the target on your back. The wealthy know this. The performatively wealthy don't. There's also a behavioral pattern that's become almost mathematically reliable. According to research on social media engagement, posts displaying purchases, vacations, and lifestyle markers consistently outperform posts displaying discipline, restraint, or boring financial behavior. The algorithm rewards display. So people perform wealth even when they don't have it, because the dopamine hit of engagement substitutes for the actual outcome the wealth was supposed to produce. The performance becomes its own end. The accounts grow. The actual financial position deteriorates. Both happen simultaneously, and the visible side outweighs the invisible side in everyone's perception. When a wealthy person sees an Instagram feed full of luxury content, they're not impressed. They're often suspicious. The wealthy disproportionately keep low or non-existent social media presences. They don't post their cars, they don't post their vacations, they don't tag their hotels, they don't film themselves at restaurants. The reason isn't modesty in the moral sense, it's strategic. Visibility costs money in the long run. Privacy compounds value. The performatively wealthy have inverted this calculus and are paying for it in ways they can't see. Let me get more specific because this matters. There's a particular pattern of social media display that wealthy observers have learned to identify within seconds. The rented exotic car photo, where the angle is too low and the same car appears in posts from multiple unrelated accounts because they all rented it on the same day. The first-class flight photo, taken from coach with a strategically angled camera to suggest a different cabin. The hotel lobby check-in photo, taken in a property the person is not staying in. The shopping bag photo, where the bags are empty or contain other items. The valet stub photo. The watch wrist shot in front of a luxury car the person doesn't own. The entire visual vocabulary of curated wealth has become so standardized that people inside the actual wealth bracket recognize it instantly. The performance is louder than the reality, and the actual wealthy can tell the difference within seconds. Move to credit cards. This is one of the more subtle manufactured wealth signals, and it has its own specific traps. The black card, the metal card, the Amex Platinum displayed at dinner, the visible flash of premium credit at checkout. People wave these cards because they believe the card itself is a wealth indicator. The math behind the card tells a different story. The American Express Platinum has an annual fee of just under $700 in 2026. The Chase Sapphire Reserve has an annual fee of over $500. The various metal card products from boutique financial institutions carry annual fees ranging from several hundred to several $1,000s. These cards exist specifically to signal status to the cardholder and to anyone observing. The marketing departments at these companies understand exactly what they're selling. They're selling status, and they're charging premium prices for status. Wealthy people use credit cards differently. They use them as financial tools rather than status broadcasts. They optimize for cashback, travel rewards, and purchase protection rather than for visual signaling. According to research from the National Study of Millionaires, 73% of millionaires never carry a credit card balance month to month. They use cards for the points and the convenience and pay them off completely every cycle. The card itself is often unremarkable. They might have a regular cashback card from their primary bank. They might have a travel card that earns miles. They might not even carry a metal card at all. The conspicuous flashing of premium credit is, again, almost always a manufactured signal rather than a real one. When a wealthy person sees someone slap a black metal card on the table at dinner, they're not impressed. They're noting that someone is paying a substantial annual fee for visual signaling. The fee is the point. The fee is the cost of the broadcast. The wealthy person already knows this and uses the card category accordingly. The performatively wealthy person has been sold on the broadcast and is paying for the privilege of broadcasting. Move to vacation choices. The fifth signaling category, and one that's become particularly visible in 2026, the all-inclusive luxury resort, the cruise ship suite, the Disney VIP package, the destination wedding. The Bahamas weekend posted in elaborate detail across every platform. The performance of leisure has become as choreographed as the performance of consumption. Wealthy people travel. They travel a lot, often more than the visibly wealthy, but their travel patterns look completely different. They tend to visit places without geotagging them. They stay in private rentals, small boutique hotels, or properties they own outright. They don't post the elaborate dinners. They don't broadcast the itinerary. The wealthy traveler often returns from a 3-week trip across multiple countries without anyone in their social circle knowing they were gone, except the close friends they specifically told. The trip happened. The performance of the trip didn't. The financial mechanics underneath the visible vacation are also worth examining. The Goldman Sachs paycheck-to-paycheck research and the bank rate cited data on emergency savings tell a consistent story. Most Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency expense without going into debt. Yet many of those same Americans take elaborate vacations funded by credit cards. The vacation is paid for over the following year through monthly payments, while the next vacation gets planned. The cycle of vacation debt is one of the most common financial fragilities in the country. The visible posts about the trip don't show the credit card balance that financed it. They don't show the 8 months of payments after. They show the sunset photo and the clinking glasses, and nothing else. When a wealthy person sees the elaborate vacation posts, They often see the underlying debt cycle. They've watched friends and colleagues run this pattern for years. They know the rhythm. The big trip gets posted. 6 months later, the same person is asking about side hustles. A year later, there's a new big trip. The vacation isn't an indicator of wealth. It's an indicator of a recurring, debt-funded pattern of leisure consumption. Two completely different things that look identical from the outside. Move to wedding and event spending. This deserves its own category because it represents one of the largest single visible wealth signals most Americans ever generate, and it almost universally indicates manufactured rather than real wealth. The average American wedding now costs roughly $33,000 per the Knott's 2025 Real Wedding Study. Many couples spend dramatically more. $60,000 weddings, $100,000 weddings, $200,000 weddings featuring destination locations, designer dresses, custom florals, and elaborate multi-day celebrations. The wealthy have, in many cases, moved in the opposite direction. There's been a notable trend among very high net worth couples towards small, private weddings. Family-only ceremonies at home or at a small venue. Civil ceremonies followed by intimate dinners. The performative wedding has become, paradoxically, the middle-class wedding. The wealthy wedding is increasingly a private affair. The signaling has reversed because the wealthy don't need the wedding to communicate anything to anyone outside their immediate circle. There's also research from Emory University showing that couples who spend $20,000 or more on their weddings are statistically more likely to divorce than couples who spend less than $10,000. The correlation is strong enough to be uncomfortable. The manufactured signal of the elaborate wedding doesn't only fail to indicate wealth, it correlates with worse marriage outcomes. The discipline of choosing a smaller wedding correlates with the discipline that produces stable marriages. The patterns connect underneath the visible behaviors. When a wealthy person hears about a $60,000 wedding among their middle-class friends, they're not impressed. They're calculating the financial setback. They know that $60,000 invested at 8% over 30 years compounds to roughly $615,000. That's what the wedding actually cost the couple in long-term terms. The wedding is the visible event. The forfeited compound future is the invisible event. Both happened at the same moment. The wealthy person sees both. The couple having the wedding sees only the visible one. Move to children and education. This is one of the most subtle manufactured wealth signals and one of the most consequential. The expensive private elementary school in a city with strong public schools. The premium prep school as a status signal among parents in a particular bracket. The pressure to attend a prestigious university, regardless of the financial mechanics involved. Wealthy people approach education spending strategically. They distinguish between education that produces measurable career outcomes and education that produces social status without proportional financial returns. They send their children to expensive schools when those schools genuinely produce outcomes. They send their children to public schools or modest private schools when those schools serve the family's needs equally well. The decision is based on cost-benefit analysis, not on signaling. The visibly wealthy often invert this. They send their children to expensive schools specifically to communicate their participation in a particular social bracket. They take Parent Plus loans, sometimes exceeding $100,000, to fund private undergraduate education at schools that don't produce proportionally better outcomes than substantially cheaper alternatives. They mortgage their retirement security to fund their children's expensive degrees. The visible signal is the expensive school. The invisible signal is the parent's compromised retirement. When a wealthy person hears another parent name drop their kid's expensive private school, the wealthy person often quietly notes the financial mechanics they don't see. They know what the tuition costs. They know whether the family's other visible spending suggests they can afford that tuition without strain. Often the answer is no, and the school is being paid for through compromises in other categories that the announcing parent isn't broadcasting. The expensive school is the visible signal. The dual mortgage on the house and the depleted 529 plan are the invisible signal. The wealthy person sees both. The announcing parent sees only the visible one. Move to technology purchases. The latest iPhone every year, the flagship Samsung Galaxy, the newest gaming console at launch, the MacBook Pro that gets replaced every 2 years, the smart home upgrades, the visible tech consumption pattern. Wealthy people use technology, often heavily, but they don't perform it. They keep iPhones for 3 to 5 years before upgrading. They use last-generation MacBooks because the performance difference is imperceptible for their actual use cases. They don't buy gaming consoles at launch because they don't care about being first. The visible pattern of perpetual tech upgrading, where someone always has the newest version of every device, is recognized within the wealth bracket as a sign of either consumption-driven psychology or actual technology professional work where the upgrades are deductible business expenses. Most people doing the upgrading are in the first category. The math, as always, is brutal. The new iPhone every 2 years at $1,200 compounds across a 30-year working life to roughly $48,000 in direct phone spending. That same money invested at 8% average annual return over the same window grows to approximately $68,000 in foregone compound returns. The iPhone upgrade pattern alone costs someone over $100,000 across their career. And that's just one device category. Stack it across phones, laptops, tablets, TVs, headphones, and household electronics, and the lifetime cost of perpetual technology upgrading easily exceeds $250,000 in foregone wealth. When a wealthy person sees someone constantly displaying the newest device, they don't see prosperity. They see consumption pattern. They know the math. They've run it. They chose differently and watch their accounts grow because of it. The visibly wealthy person made the opposite choice and watched their accounts stay flat or shrink while their devices got newer. Move to gym memberships, supplements, and wellness consumption. This is a more recent category, but it's grown significantly in the last 5 years. The premium gym membership at $300 a month, the personal trainer at $150 per session, the supplement stack at $200 a month, the boutique fitness classes, the cryotherapy sessions, the IV drip clinics, the functional medicine doctor outside insurance, the visible consumption of wellness as a marker of arrived class status. Wealthy people prioritize health, often heavily, but the spending patterns are different. They tend to invest in foundational items that produce results. A reliable home gym setup amortized across a decade rather than a constantly renewed boutique membership. Quality nutrition rather than expensive supplements. A primary care physician they trust rather than rotating specialists. A modest activity practice they actually maintain rather than an expensive program they renew annually but use sporadically. The wealthy approach to health is often unsexy. The visible wellness consumption pattern is sexy and often produces worse health outcomes per dollar spent. When a wealthy person sees someone broadcasting their wellness spending, they often see another consumption pattern in disguise. The wellness products are often paid for with credit cards, just like everything else. The recurring monthly fees compound into substantial annual spending without producing proportional results. The wellness performance is structurally similar to the luxury performance. Both involve recurring spending on visible markers without underlying durable value. Now let me address something subtle but important. None of this is a moral judgment about people who own luxury items. There's nothing wrong with buying a Rolex if you can afford it. There's nothing wrong with driving a BMW if it fits your real financial picture. There's nothing wrong with private school if it serves your family's actual goals. The issue isn't ownership. The issue is the directional misreading of what those items signal in 2026. The misreading goes like this. People assume that visible luxury items signal wealth. Wealthy people, by and large, no longer use those items as their primary wealth signals, which means the items have been adopted by the next economic bracket down as aspiration markers. The result is that visible luxury items now signal aspiration much more reliably than they signal arrival. Anyone who has spent significant time around real wealth has internalized this directional reversal. Anyone who hasn't is still operating on the older pattern, and the older pattern hasn't been accurate for at least a decade. This is why what looks rich to most people screams broke to wealthy people. The signals being broadcast are signals from the previous era. The current signals are quieter, and they're often invisible to anyone who hasn't been around real wealth long enough to notice them. Let me give you the inverse list. The signals that wealthy people actually pick up on that broadcast real financial security to other wealthy people. These are the signals that are quietly working in the background of every social interaction, building a different kind of recognition entirely. Wealthy people notice teeth. Specifically, they notice well-maintained, healthy teeth. Dental work over a lifetime is one of the most reliable indicators of consistent disposable income across decades. People who grew up middle class or wealthy tend to have had orthodontic work, regular cleanings, and any necessary cosmetic work handled. Adults who have notably damaged or untreated dental issues often, though not always, indicate a different economic background. This isn't fair. It's just an observation pattern. Wealthy people register it within seconds. Wealthy people notice posture and physical fitness, not the gym rat aesthetic, but baseline physical maintenance. People who have access to consistent health care, time for physical activity, and good nutrition across decades tend to carry themselves differently. The pattern is subtle. Wealthy people pick it up. Wealthy people notice grammar and verbal patterns. Education, particularly graduate education, leaves marks in vocabulary and sentence structure that are difficult to fake. The quiet wealthy can identify someone's educational background within a few minutes of conversation. This isn't snobbery in any moral sense. It's just pattern recognition. Wealthy people notice timekeeping, specifically the ability to be on time without stress. People who are perpetually rushed, perpetually late, perpetually triple booked are signaling time scarcity. People who arrive 10 minutes early, calm, with no signs of having juggled the morning to make it happen, are signaling time abundance. Time abundance is a wealth signal. It indicates that the person has structural margin in their schedule, which usually correlates with structural margin in their life more broadly. Wealthy people notice the absence of financial conversation. The quietly wealthy almost never bring up money in social settings. They don't mention prices. They don't reference what things cost. They don't talk about deals. They don't talk about how much they make or what they spent on something. The absence of this category of conversation is itself a wealth signal. The presence of constant money talk in either direction is a manufactured wealth signal. The wealthy don't need to discuss their wealth. The performatively wealthy can't stop discussing it. Wealthy people notice quiet confidence, the absence of need for external validation, the ability to disagree without performing offense, the willingness to be wrong without spiraling. These behavioral patterns develop in people who don't carry chronic financial anxiety. The chronic financial anxiety the rest of America carries shows up in countless subtle behavioral tells. The wealthy registered the absence of those tells. Wealthy people notice quality without logos, the handbag without the visible brand, the watch without the recognizable face, the shoes without the loud aesthetic, the coat without the obvious branding. The wealthy can often tell by texture and cut and construction what something is, even when nothing about it announces its origin. The visible logo person is broadcasting to the wrong audience. The no logo person is communicating to the right one. Wealthy people notice generosity without spectacle, quiet tipping, unannounced kindnesses, picking up checks without making it a moment, helping people without posting it, volunteering without broadcasting it. These behaviors require the financial security to extend resources outward without needing credit. They indicate the absence of scarcity-driven psychology. They register as wealth signals to other wealthy people in ways that are essentially invisible to outsiders. Now, here's the part of this that matters most. None of the manufactured wealth signals we walk through are random. They cluster together. They tend to appear in the same person, in the same financial profile, with the same outcomes. The leased BMW, the visible logo handbag, the oversized house, the Instagram performance, the elaborate wedding, the constant tech upgrades, the wellness consumption. They're not separate decisions. They're a single underlying pattern expressing itself through multiple visible categories. The pattern is a substitution of broadcast wealth for actual wealth, and it produces the same outcome reliably across hundreds of thousands of people. Financial fragility hidden behind visible prosperity. Wealthy people see the cluster. They see one signal and immediately know the rest. They see the leased X5 and they know there's probably a Gucci bag, an oversized house, an Instagram feed full of vacations, and a paycheck-to-paycheck reality underneath all of it. The cluster is so reliable, it functions almost like a fingerprint. Anyone who has been around real wealth long enough has learned to read it. Anyone who has been around real wealth long enough has also learned that escaping the cluster takes years and requires actually building the underlying financial structure that the cluster pretends to indicate. The structure is invisible. The structure is boring. The structure is what wealthy people actually have, and it's the only thing that produces the quiet confidence, the time abundance, the absence of money talk, and all the other genuine wealth signals that can't be faked. You can't shortcut to those signals through purchases. The signals emerge from the structure underneath, or they don't emerge at all. If you watched this video and recognized yourself in the manufactured wealth cluster, the path out isn't to throw out your nice things. It's to start building the structure underneath your visible life, the boring foundation that real wealth is actually built on. Knowing your real numbers, knowing where your money is going, sequencing your priorities, creating breathing room you can't currently feel because the visible spending has consumed all of it. I built a digital product called the Financial Reset System for exactly this situation. It walks you through getting clear on what you actually have, finding where your money is leaking, sequencing your priorities, and building a 30-day plan that creates the foundation everything else depends on. Every number auto-calculates as you fill it in. The PDF guide walks you through each step. The 30-day plan gives you weekly checkpoints. The link is in the description and in my profile if you want to take a look. The visible wealth never produces the structural wealth. The structural wealth, given enough time, eventually produces the kind of quiet confidence that registers as real even to people who have been around real wealth their entire lives. Let me bring this back to where we started. The work event, the room, the woman in the corner with the navy sweater and the watch you didn't recognize. She's seeing you in a different way than you're seeing yourself. She's running calculations you don't know are happening. She's noting what you broadcast without realizing what she's reading from it. None of this is hostile. It's just pattern recognition. Wealth produces pattern recognition because wealth is a pattern. It expresses itself through specific behaviors, specific spending choices, specific habits, specific absences. Anyone who has lived inside the pattern long enough sees it everywhere. The most uncomfortable fact in all of this is that the directional reversal is widely known inside the wealth bracket and largely unknown outside it. The manufactured wealth cluster keeps generating the same outcomes for the same reasons. People keep falling into it because it feels intuitive. The luxury car feels like a wealth move. The expensive bag feels like a wealth move. The bigger house feels like a wealth move. None of these are wealth moves anymore. They're aspiration moves, and they're recognized as such by everyone who has already arrived. Real wealth is invisible. Real wealth is quiet. Real wealth is in the structure underneath the visible life, not in the visible life itself. The visible life is the part everyone sees. The structure is the part that actually matters. People who confuse the two end up trying to build the visible life by purchasing it directly, which is exactly backwards. The visible life that wealthy people lead is the natural output of the structure they built. You cannot reverse the equation. You cannot purchase your way to the output without doing the work that produces it. The boring structure is what creates the quiet confidence. The quiet confidence is what wealthy people actually recognize. The luxury items, the displays, the broadcasts, the performances, all of it gets read as exactly what it is. People who don't know this keep doing it. People who do know it stopped years ago. The gap between those two groups isn't intelligence. It's exposure to the signal reading system that wealth produces in the people inside it. Once you can read the system, you can't unread it. You'll see the cluster everywhere. You'll see the broadcasts and recognize them. You'll see the quiet wealth and recognize that too. You'll also see your own broadcasting in a completely different light. The thing you thought looked rich was screaming broke the entire time. The thing you thought looked modest was the thing wealthy people have been quietly doing for decades. The reversal isn't fair. It isn't moral. It's just the pattern. And once you see the pattern, the only question left is which side of it you want to be on. The boring side is where the structure gets built. The structure is where the real signals come from. The real signals are what wealthy people actually recognize. Everything else is noise.